We're going to jump back in time today. We're going to go to the year 2021, US Chess Championship. We have Danya with the black pieces and Fabi with the white pieces. It takes an absolute legend to beat Fabi in classical chess, and Daniel Naroditsky beat him with the black pieces. The game stems from a Spanish. We get a6 kicking the bishop, and we get pawn to d6. Kind of an old school Ruy Lopez. It's called the Steinitz variation. You set up this pawn chain, you block out your dark squared bishop, and you plan to fianchetto it. This was very popular in the 1800s, named after William Steinitz himself. Old school chess, old school chess. Different day, different year, same stuff. You had propaganda back in the day, back in the 1800s, except it was printed from a newspaper once a day. Today you have social media that's refreshed every second, and it becomes an echo chamber. Most people are very good in life, I believe. There's a few bad apples that try to capitalize on the raw emotions of those good people. Think of politics. They lobby for votes, they act like they care about you. Do they actually? No. Think about job. A promotion, a demotion, a pay raise, a pay cut. Well, social media is kind of the same thing, except it's to grab attention. And I believe that when emotions run rampant, a few bad apples try to turn it into a mob. They try to morally grandstand because they know that when emotions run rampant, people will invest their time into it, right? Because emotions are passion. When you're passionate about something, you'll give someone your time. When someone has your time, they'll try to monetize it. Even if they post a video and demonetize it, they're still garnering your attention, right? They're moral grandstanding. And you might disagree, but the world is a cruel place. The world is, it's not everybody is a nice guy. Look at the average driver. Look at the average, pretty bad at driving. What are you going to get, road rage? That just makes you a bad driver then. So I do believe people have ill intentions, a few bad apples. Many people have good intentions, but I feel like there are a few bad apples that try to monetize it and try to take advantage of different types of situations, which is very unfortunate. But as chess players, we value pattern recognition. Do not become a part of the mob, right? The mob, in the end, will eat its own. You can't stop it. There's always going to be someone more radical, and it propels itself, right? It runs on momentum, and that's why mobs eat their own. So rather than trying to detract, ruin, rescind, destroy, just try to remember, right? Commemorate. Just an absolute legend of the game. And understand that the world is a cruel place. And the anecdote to it being a cruel place, there's different, you can argue for something. You can, I don't want to word this, you can try to prevent people from being idiots, but it's never going to work. So you have to just acknowledge that there are going to be idiots, kind of create an iron mind and recognize that happiness is internal rather than external. Never seek it externally. The worst thing you could do is be emotional and go online, because then you're going to enter an echo chamber of people that are more emotional and want to really tear things down rather than create. Better to create than to destroy. And shall we get back to chess? I just had to say something because it's very sad to see things that are disingenuous. But okay, we got c3. Fabi is playing for d4. Rook d1. Black's king is still in the center. We get pawn to g6. Fabi strikes, and we get the fianchettoed bishop. That is the Steinitz variation. Knight to d2. Pawn takes. We got the central pawns. What is Danya going to do? He's going to play the best move. He's going to castle. He's like, Fabi, you're 2,800. Let's bring it back down to 2,700. Why don't we? Pawn to h3. Knight to b4. So still theory, but knight to b4 is a very good move, right? Because in Spanishes, people tend to value their light squared bishop, but they actually cannot keep it on the board because knight to d3 is a monster of a move. So they traded off. They tried to kick out the knight, but Naroditsky solidifies it. And a5 is really a beautiful move because this knight is a thorn to white's position. So white tries to remove it. But every time you push a pawn, you weaken a square in your position, you create a hole, and that hole is long term. So it shall be used by Naroditsky later on. So we get a4 kicking the queen. They say knights on the side of the board are bad. Not when you're Danya. When you're Danya, you're routing it over to an outpost. We get bishop to g5, knight to b3, jumping in, attacking the rook. And we get rook a to d1. Pawn to h6, and I'll let you know, only one man has a bishop. And that guy is Danya. So we have a bishop and a knight versus two knights. Bobby's playing some 2800 chess, routing his knight. Look at this. Imagine bringing it to d2 to f1, back to d2, back to its starting square. On to b5, a beautiful thrust on the queen side. You have one outpost, you create a base of a pawn chain, you create a pawn chain, and you create another one. And the reason I kind of had to say what I said is because I've just been seeing so much stuff and I haven't seen any of my opinion, and I was like, there's no way, like, there's no way this is happening right now. I mean, it happens in every sect, whether it's chess, politics, job, everything. There's bad apples everywhere, and it just disgusts me. And I guess I really started thinking about it when I was doing the positional book written by Naroditsky, and I was making a thumbnail. I don't know if you guys have ever made a thumbnail, but like you watch videos on it, you're like, oh, like I'm bad with colors. In fact, I'm colorblind, red, green, colorblind. But like, you know, you need to make things look nice, and then I'm just like making a color scheme, and then I'm putting a book, and then I'm putting Danya's face on it, and while emotions are running high, and I'm like, wait, like the point of making a thumbnail is to get people to click on your video, right? So your CTR rate is not like 0.8, so it's higher. I was like, so the point of making a thumbnail is to make people click, and I felt guilty. I was like, now I'm using, even though it wasn't, because I was trying to commemorate his book, and like deep down I felt like I had to ask so many friends about this, like the moral conversation of it. I was like, this just feels wrong. Like people are going to click on this because they see his face. And then I'm like making a thumbnail, and it just felt kind of disgusting. That's why on when I make this video, I'm gonna put Fabi with like a blanked out question mark silhouette, because I don't know, just it did something and it didn't sit right with me. It didn't feel right with me. And then I really dug into it, you know, because you solve your problems internally. So you kind of need to look inwards and always question yourself. Always question yourself, your motives, just dig into it. Try to find an answer, try to find the answer. Ask other people that you trust, that you can have conversations with, right? Not brain right conversations, actual intellectual conversations. And then you'll go places. You will become a stronger person. Iron mind. Seek happiness internally. Whatever the external does to you, don't let it bring you down. For the rest of the video, for those still watching, back into chess. We create a pawn chain. This kind of reminds me of a boat, right? If this a pawn was over here, it's a little boat. Kind of how I think of it. But this isn't a boat, and Fabi goes pawn to e5 because it's not a boat. We got rook to e8, claiming the center file, and knight to e4, two attackers over here on d6. Danya jumps his knight over to c4, backwards defending. Look at this. I mean, this outpost he created over here. Now we got this guy. And if you trade pawns, this is an outpost that could never be kicked out again, and you're aiming it on a3. So really a good understanding. And then watch the time for Fabi dwindle. So move 26. He spends like, not so quick math, 8 minutes on taking the pawn. Danya correctly captures back. We get knight to e5. What is the only move for black? Queen to f5, pinning the knight to the queen. Fabi, of course, 2800, finds the only move. Danya retreats. And it is in this position where Fabi makes his mistake. Danya only needed one mistake to completely take over the game. He played this game at 98 accuracy. What Fabi had to do was take the knight on d6. We would enter the line. Queen takes d6. Knight takes c6. A trade of rooks would commence. Danya would take a pawn. And you might be like, why didn't he go for this? Like rook to d1. Well, I don't think he believed he had winning chances here. Hard to evaluate from so long ago, right? The only thing for equality is knight takes, queen takes. You might be like, why not just pin? Why not just pin? What about our pin? Did you see our pin? Did you see queen to g3 taking over the game? I'm sure Fabi calculated this. And because of that, he went back to c3, but he went backwards. This gave the momentum to Danya, who correctly went for a queen trade that had to be taken. You get doubled pawns. Not only did you get doubled pawns, you get double isolated pawns, or so it looks like. Have you ever seen a set of good double isolated pawns? Fabi takes the pawn. And we get a switch, knight to c4. Not taking. He's fixing his structure. You see, because now this guy has 3 attackers on it, only 1 defender. So he fixes Naroditsky's pawn structure. And look at the base of the pawn chain. Look how Danya got his pawns through. That was masterful. Not to mention, so masterful that Fabi has a minute on the clock with 35 moves having been played. He has 5 moves to make time control. Plays rook to c1, the human move. I believe everything would have lost here. Look at that abysmal rook endgame. Or guarding from the side, horrible. So rook to c1. Danya forks, wins a pawn. We get pawn to c6, pawn to b2. Knight to c3, stopping the pawn from promoting. But this is easy mode. He brings his bishop back, right? A lot of the times you develop your bishop to get castled, people never think to bring it back. But once you are castled, once you're fully developed, it's actually the starting square of the bishops is very, very nice. You can re-fianchetto it as he does. Great vision. Brings his king into the game, as all grandmasters do. Fabi is trying. He's poking, he's prodding. He has hit time control, but too little, too late. Danya's making micro improvements. Trades down into a bishop versus knight endgame, where you're just up a pawn, but a pawn is a pawn. A pawn is all he needs. Fabi trying for some final tricks. This is GG's. This is GG's because your pawn will be protected on a dark square. Fabi resigns. This pawn, the king is masterfully in the box, so it's not going anywhere. This knight is tied down to this pawn, so you're going to win this pawn, and one of the pawns will get through when you use your king. So Danya's a legend. He took down one of the best classical chess players to have ever lived. He did so in Fabi's tournament, that is the US Chess Championship. He took down the 5-time US Chess Champion with the black pieces, and it was a beautiful chess game. Thank you as always for watching. Have a great day.